Okay, welcome to the Metapod, a Pokemon TCG podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. F you, Sean, I got it.
You got it this time. Nailed it.
Yeah, it only took the 5th episode. Make sure to bleep out that giant F-bomb. I didn't mean to do that.
This is explicit.
I'm super tired. I'm not I'm not on my A game today. I'm on like the B or C game right now, but we're making it work. We got a lot of stuff that we want to talk about in this podcast. Sean's going to hard carry this podcast today. We're talking about results. We're talking about the Players' Cup because people were introduced into the 256, and now we have details about what's coming up next. And we'll talk about kind of what the possible meta might be for the Players' Cup coming up. And then we'll talk about some new cards. A full set list was announced in Japan. And then Sean's got a soapbox segment.
We'll see if it's the last soapbox segment.
What?
I don't know. Not for you. Not for you.
Oh, okay, cool. I was going to say, I kind of enjoy the soapbox segments. It gives me a little bit to look forward to, even if it stresses me out of what are we going to talk about. But it seems like every week there's something that comes up that's like, oh God. It's like that meme in like Grand Theft Auto where it's like the person walking away and it's like, oh shit, here we go again.
Oh shit.
Exactly. That's exactly what the soapbox segment turns into.
Well, let's just kick it off then with some Players' Cup action. How about that?
Perfect. Positive. There's been some results in the past week. Shout out to Cashman, always writing out all these results that I use. Gotta give him a shout out for that. Also, shout out to Cashman placing second in the Sunday Open, staying up till like 5:30 a.m. his local time to do that. So there were kind of 3 major events that went on in the standard format. There were 2 Hegster TCG top deck tournaments. Numbers 11 and 12 is 5 Swiss rounds, 8 top cut, 26 and 27 players for the respected tournaments. Kind of 2 very different top 8s. I feel like on Saturday, you look at the top 8 for the Hegzer tournament. Pika Rom, Dragapult, Control, ADP, Zacian. Cool. You know, that's kind of, it's a little bit, you know, even though Pika Rom took 3 of the 4 spots, pretty similar to what we would think would happen, right, on a normal given day. Sunday, Blacephalon, top 2 spots, also got 7th.
Yeah, I mean,
it's really interesting that Blacephalon did not make it in the top 8 on one day, but kind of like dominated the second day. I don't know. That's really interesting in my personal opinion, because you would think like archetypes, like, yeah, like there's different players, but like archetypes overall probably generally have a better or have a more consistent. Would you think? I don't know if I'm explaining this right.
I think for me, I look at this and I just think to myself, okay, Pikachu, check. Dragapult, check. ADP, check. Zacian combo, check. Blacephalon, check. Like, there's like nothing in the top 8 of either of these that's actually surprising. These are all the meta decks, right? The only difference is that one day you had a bunch of Pikachu and Zekroms on top, and the next day you had a bunch of Blacephalons on top. And like, you know, if it's only like a 4-round event, 5-round event, it is kind of, I think, tough to like, there is going to be some variance naturally. So I personally am not reading too much into the variation there, because like what you're seeing though is still the same decks that everybody expects.
I just thought it was weird that Blacephalon dominated one day and was non-existent in the other. I just thought that was weird.
I mean, it literally may also be that a bunch of people know, like, nobody played Blounds the day before, and they were like, oh shoot, nobody played Blounds? You know, I'm going to play Blounds today. And then everybody played Blounds. They metagamed themselves.
Me welder, me win.
Yeah, but basically.
In the Sunday Open, very exciting Sunday Open. As we mentioned, you know, Cashman made it in the top 2. Good friend of ours. Shout out to him. This Sunday Open, top 16, had a Mary Mill slide into the 12th spot, which I thought was interesting. Had some people who kind of switch. I saw Malamar, somebody played Malamar VMAX and Green's Reshazard. They kind of switched between the two and did very well with it, placed within the top 16, which kind of really interesting. I don't know if it was a position of like, well, I'm just going to alternate, or if it was more of like, all right, I've seen this person here before. This is what they've usually played. So this is the better deck against it. Like I don't it's very interesting to see like not only people who switch between decks, but also like two abstract decks that they switch between.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a pretty weird combo. I guess they're both kind of controlly in some ways. Greenzard and Malamar have, mid game control elements to them, so I kind of get that. Mm-hmm. But the person who switched between Luke Metal and Blacephalon, though, at number 8, I'm like, wow, that is a flip. You're like,
that's like a huge difference. That's playing like slow game in comparison to playing 1,000 miles an hour, right? Drawing 100 cards in one turn.
But to me, what this might be is like, you look at this and you think to yourself, are these people maybe just testing different decks they might want to bring to the Players' Cup, right?
Mm-hmm.
So overall, I think this last weekend, the main thing that stands out to me, ADPZ, is kind of back in some ways.
Yes.
And then if you think about the format that the Players' Cup is going to take, the Players' Cup is going to be best 2 out of 3. It's a best of 3 format for the entire tournament. ADPZ is very good in a best of 3 scenario. ADPZ stinks if you have a bad start and then you just lose, right? Because you don't get your alter creation. But in a best of 3, if you've built your deck very consistently, the odds of that happening are very low. And I think that actually is almost why you saw it fall off over the Limitless qualifier, is because, in the best of 1, every single time, like you're just sitting there like, I can't afford to have 1 bad game or 2 bad games in this whole tournament. I think that makes a huge difference. So I think people playing ADPZ again, realizing that it's still good, going into the Players' Cup, I think is a big development.
And like you talk about the development and, talking about Rebel Clash, the format overall, again, Cashman posted another wonderful statistic and graphic. Shout outs to you. You're wonderful. Kind of listed every single deck in these tournaments coming up, whether that was like the Limitless qualifier or the Sunday Open, things like that, where decks specifically get like either a tour win, a top 4, or a top 8, and numbering off all of those things. So you look at kind of the top 5 decks. I think a lot of people could probably guess it. Dragapult, Pikarom, Zacian Combo, Blacephalon, ADP. Probably that 5th spot is a little bit up for debate. Some people might say like Luke Metal, some people might say Spiritomb, that type of deal. Some people might say Control. But that's the definitive top 5. Do you agree kind of with this top 5? Would you say that like if someone were to look at this list and say, these are the 5 decks that I'm going to face, would you make any differences to be like, no, you should really like, instead of worrying as much about this deck, you should probably start worrying more about this deck?
No, I think that's a good list. I think, I don't see any reason to knock any of these off of that top 5. The main things I would say is the 3 right below it. Those are the decks that are going to ruin your day. The top 5, Drag, Pikarom, Zacian Combo, Blounds, and ADPZ. Those 5 decks are going to be the majority of the field. I think Luke, Celio's Network, made a great video about this as well, and I think he's spot on. And, that will be very consistent for you in many ways. But I think if somebody is able to, build the right deck as a Luke Metal, a Spiritomb build, or even Obstagoon, if you can build the right version of that, I think you could go very far in this tournament. And I actually expect to see probably one of each of those make it into top 16 from North America or any other region. Like the percentage of people who entered the tournament with them and then converted into top 16, I think is going to be very high. Just because I think that they are actually in a very good position if piloted correctly and built correctly. So if you're supremely confident in those decks, I would actually run with one of those. If you are kind of like, I just want to have the best odds of making it into the next day or whatever, then the top 5 is probably what's for you.
I think that Control, somebody runs really deep with Control. People are not going to be ready for Control, like as ready as maybe they were for the Limitless qualifier.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think because at least the first couple of qualifier events, Control and Mill especially, were like, that was what everybody was worried about. There was like, it's ADPZ or it's Mill/Control, something like that.
More Mill than Control, to be honest.
True. But then you had like the sleep. I played a sleep control deck. It's like a Control/Mill sleep deck. I don't know. It was weird. My only thing about Control is like if ADPZ is able to climb in popularity again, I actually think Control suffers because you're taking so many prizes, right? Control needs to have a turn usually where Articuno comes out. Well, that's 3 prizes for ADPZ. And at some point during the game, your opponent is going to build up enough energy. You only have 4 crushing hammers, right? The games last long. And keep in mind, let's talk about the format of Players' Cup. And that way, like, this will probably help a little bit.
That's true, because I don't know a single thing about the Players' Cup schedule or how it's going to be run or anything like that.
So the Players' Cup schedule is going to be every Saturday for, I think, the next 4 weeks. This first Saturday, every region is going to have their own tournament. North America is going to have their tournament. That's what I'm going to be competing in. It's the top 256 players, according to the tournament rep, at least.
Yes.
And yeah, so what it is, it's best of 3, and it is a double elimination format, meaning if you lose 2 games, you're out of the tournament. And you basically whittle that all the way down till there's only 4 players from each region remaining. And that is going to be the end of the first phase. Day 1 is going to be top 256 down to 64. So with that, it's basically like, okay, it's probably going to be between 3 and 5 rounds. It's hard to say exactly how many rounds, but I would just bank on 4 rounds, right? Is a good thing to consider. Now, I know if you win every game, your day will actually be shorter because like the number of people who have 0 wins, I think will be out of 256 down to 64. There'll be 32 players who have 0 losses. Once that gets to 32, which might be after just 3 rounds, you may only have to play 3 games in the winner's bracket, and then you're done for the day, right? If you lose, it'll probably be 4 rounds, maybe 5. But these are best of 3 as well, which is another important factor. So you will get to see your opponent's deck before you start, which I think is a huge difference of like, it's going to be hard to surprise people with certain cards. So if you are playing Mareep Mill or something like that, your opponent is going to know exactly what you're playing, right? And it's not like we're in a new format where something, where certain combos are not known. Unless somebody completely breaks a deck at this tournament, everything that is going to be shown to you will probably be something you could be familiar with. And yeah, and then you play best of 3 and it's timed. So that's an important factor. Each of the games is timed. So that's where I actually think Control may not do well.
Where did you say how long the time was?
I mean, it's a normal PTCGO timer, right? So you just play 3 games and each game has to be timed. So it's however long a game on PTCGO is.
So wait, so you said it has the PTCGO timer. So it's like, obviously the game has to last within the PTCGO timer, right?
Yeah.
Completely doable. I've done that many times on stream. I've done that before. But like because you said best of 3, so it's best of 3 of every one of those games with the timer?
Yes.
So like the timer's what? How long is the timer?
I want to say it's like 25 minutes or something like that.
25 minutes, plenty of time. Of time. So that 25 minutes resets every game.
I would assume so, right? Like Pokemon has no way of enforcing anything otherwise.
You could theoretically take 24 minutes each game.
Yeah, I mean, again, here's my fear. If I'm a Control player, right? This is why I don't think Control will necessarily be played that much. 1, you have a bad ADPZ matchup. You just do. They're taking extra prizes. If you stick an Articuno on and a Zacian on, then they only need 2 knockouts to win. And with Control, it takes a lot of time off the clock. A lot. And I won games on the tournament ladder. I got first place on one tournament because my opponent ran out of time.
Yeah, but the tournament ladder...
It's shorter.
Yeah, it's way shorter. It's like, what, 13 minutes or something like that?
And yeah, that's true. It is shorter.
This is ladder timers, which is, I don't think I've ever run out of time on ladder. And I play Control a lot. Like most of my points come from Control.
On ladder? I mean...
Well, not on ladder, but like in IRL events.
But again, IRL events is just,
Yeah, but I think it's shorter. Like IRL events are like more like the tournaments because like the timer only goes when it's your turn, right? It's not in comparison to like an IRL event to where the timer is everybody's turn, right?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, you're right. I mean,
I think that you have like with you telling me that the timer like resets and it's like a normal I don't even know what to call it, quick queue, casual ladder, casual like getting your electric points or whatever. If that's the timer that we're going with and it resets every game, there's so much time for a control player.
so I'm looking, I need to look at this because you might be right, actually. Like, if you think about that, that might be too much time.
That is so much time for good. Like I would, if I was a control player and if I was someone who loved control, which I do, and I was doing this, I would not worry about the timer. 100%. There's got to be like something. There's got to be like if you do like the Neopie Open where there's like a 25-minute timer. There's got to be something like that is like 45 minutes. Like isn't a regional like 45 minutes? I've never been to a regional. I think it's like 45 or
It's
something
usually
minutes, right?
Every tournament organizer can actually choose, but usually it's 50 minutes.
Okay, so 50. If it was like a 50-minute thing, that's different. But effectively, what you're saying, or what we've discussed, is that the timer can be quick math 150 or not 100, an hour and 15 minutes, like a best of 3 series. Like that's so long. That's so much time.
Yeah.
That's so much nicer because you have like that's so much time where you can take a little bit longer to set up and you can figure out like and you can maximize on mistakes because the longer the game is played, the more likely that a person is going to be able to, or the person is going to make a mistake both ways.
Okay. So
it's really wow, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the format. So maybe
Control's not going to run the thing. I don't think that Control's going to run the Players' Cup, but I do think now that we've discussed what possibly the timer is, I think it's going to be better than a lot of these other events. Yeah, I would advise if anybody from TPCI is that the correct? I always get that wrong.
Yep.
Okay,
Pokemon
TPCI
National.
I would highly advise anybody that listens to this working at TPCI to talk to Neopie about how to implement a timer.
Yeah.
Because it's run through Discord, right? You were invited to like a Discord.
Yep. Discord and Battlefy. So like
run that through Discord. Battlefy has a timer as well built into it, I believe, right? So use that timer. I would assume that they're going to have a timer. I just don't know why they haven't told anybody yet.
Yeah, because you're right. It actually is. Now that I think about it, it's kind of an unfair advantage for the control player.
Oh God, it's wonderful. Like, because that relieves like so much stress. Honestly, like as a control player, you inherently have stress on the timer.
Well, overall, though, I would say, the top 5 decks that we already talked about. If and Luke Celios Network talked about this. Personally, I do think Luke Metal could do very well. I think Luke Metal is one of those decks that like it has a good matchup against Dragapult, against Pikarom, against Zacian combo. And if you can find your frying pans, it has a good matchup against Blounds.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's one of those decks that like, even in its bad matchups, like you're talking about Blounds, like you just have a slow start as Blounds, it's over. If you have a hot start against Luke Metal, it's a little bit more even,
Yeah. And so like for me, I'm like, okay, I'm really tempted to play Luke Metal, honestly. And Obstagoon is one that like I know a few people are going to bring that because again, I think Obstagoon, the right build of it, can do well against Dragapult because of hitting it for weakness. And if you had Yveltal in there as well. And then outside of that, you're like, okay, well, what is Pikarom? What's Zacian combo? What are all of these decks doing against you if you're playing Obstagoon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like at a certain point, like Pikarom, tries to paralyze you with Choo Choo. That's all they got. I think Obstagoon also could be like a deck that you see getting played, and a deck that's not on here because it's just not really. It isn't really brought to many events, but it was brought by like Trainer Chip and some others. to keep in mind is Behemoth. I think that is a very interesting deck that if you're looking for a rogue deck to bring to this, Behemoth is a good choice. You're item locking your opponent, which is always good. And yeah, if you can set up a situation where you can Behemoth and not necessarily leave anything on the bench, or you're a one prize deck, right? Your opponent probably only runs 2, maybe 3 boss's orders. Make sure you have backups. You have some Elise Pokedolls. And once they run through their boss's orders, you're good. So I think a spread Behemoth deck could also do really well, but that's my rogue call.
Is Mew and Mewtwo considered rogue right now? Because it's like not really meta. Yeah, it placed top 8 in the Limitless qualifier, or not the Limitless qualifier, the recent Neopie Open by Jake Santiago.
I wouldn't call it rogue as much as I would call it tier 2.
Okay, because it's like
Because
but I don't
I don't think it's rogue because look, it's an archetype that has won regionals in some form or fashion.
In the Rebel Clash format, none of them had necessarily done super well outside of what Jake did with Galaxy Mewtwo, which is the new iteration from what he played in the Neopie Open. But it was Nico. Nico won OCIC.
Okay.
Melbourne with Mew and Mewtwo, and it was the
overall though I would say Mewtwo and Mew has a bad matchup with Blounds. So Blounds will show up in force, and Mewtwo and Mew will not do well. That's just the reality, right? Like unless you can dodge Blounds, which maybe you can. If you get lucky and you dodge, because look, you only got to play a few games a day. So if your first couple of games, 2 or 3 games, you don't get paired with Blounds and you have the answers that you need, like if you play a Pikarom and you have the Marshadow and Machamp GX, boom, easy dub. If you are playing as Dragapult and you have the T-Tar, easy dub, right? Like I could easily see a Mewtwo and Mew in that format doing very well. Yeah, eventually you'll hit Blounds and you're not going to have a great time.
Is it Blounds or Pikarom that you would consider as the cheapest deck?
Cheapest? Ooh, that's a tough one. With all
because
the
like I'm thinking, like with all the new stuff, like the Pikarom battle deck, the Trainer's Toolkit, which one's cheaper? Because like Blacephalon overall is pretty cheap, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it only does like 1 Zacian maximum. It doesn't really play boss.
Plays a few Dedenes, but easy. Maybe 1 Dedenne.
I don't even know if it really. I think it would just play 1 maximum.
Plays
in
1
comparison
Dedenne.
to like Pikarom that plays like 3.
I think on PTCGO,
probably plays 2 boss's orders.
It's I think they're both pretty cheap. I would still probably say Blounds is cheaper, but
That's
I think
what I would
Pikarom will be more played.
I think so too. Pikarom's just been around so long.
Yeah.
That most everybody who's been playing in the last year probably has most of the cards for it.
The only reason I think that Mewtwo and Mew may not do great, I don't think Mewtwo and Mew has a good matchup with ADPZ, because if ADPZ has, Obstagoons in it, then, they're doing 260, throw down an Obstagoon and you're knocking out Mewtwo and Mews.
Zigzagoon.
Sorry, Zigzagoon. Yeah, Zigzagoon, and you're knocking out Mewtwo and Mews. And like on top of that, you're sitting here with like, okay, well, I have the answer to ADP in, Guardian, but Guardian also gives up 3 prizes to Zacian. So it's like, it's not really the answer that you want, right? It's, you're going to get 1 shot right back every turn. So I also think that's another reason Mewtwo and Mew is not going to do as well. ADPZ is also tough. Outside of that though, like I'm looking at the list and I don't really see any other real contenders. I mean, if you want to have fun, you can bring a number of these different decks, but I think if you want to progress, if you want to give yourself the best chance to do well long-term in the tournament, the top 5 are probably your safe bets.
You get to see the deck list much like in the Limos qualifier, right? You see the deck list that they're playing?
Yep, open deck list.
Okay. Yeah. Make sure that nobody cheats you, because someone tried to cheat me in the Limos qualifier.
Yes. Read your opponent. If you're playing in the Players' Cup, read your opponent's deck list. Next week, we'll have some awesome meta results, hopefully, about the Players' Cup. And then we'll have that news for the next few weeks.
because we got insider information from our super secret agent. His name is Nias over here.
Oh boy. So yeah, I think that's all I really have. Do you have any other questions about the Players Cup, or that's probably enough information?
This is a little bit of a meme question, but do you think it's gonna crash because it's on Battlefy?
No, I think it'll be fine.
You think it'll be fine? You don't think there will be? Do you think there's going to be any major problem? Or are you confident that you think it's going to be okay?
I think people have been doing online tournaments now for 3 or 4 months. So my hope is that most of the people who are participating in the Players Cup will have participated in some number of tournaments online. Pokemon, I don't think is going to be very accommodating, meaning they have rules that are written out that are like, we're going to start. If you are not here on time, it's a penalty. If you're not here within the first 5 minutes, it's a 1-game loss. If you're not here within the first 10 minutes,
because Battlefy gives you like that 5 minute or whatever.
So I think Pokemon, like what Limitless will have done is Limitless, is going to try to be a little bit more handholdy. Where I think Pokemon, assuming that everything technically runs correctly, I don't think they're going to be very handholdy because they know that this could become a big logistical nightmare if they do. So what I think is if you're going to compete in this, read the rules. They sent them to you in a PDF, right? More than a week in advance. Read the rules, know everything, know when to submit your deck list. Because if you don't, I think there's going to be a zero tolerance policy from Pokemon. So
yeah.
And I think that's the right thing to do, right? You got to coordinate all of these people through different regions within the same time frame. If you mess up, then like that stinks, but like that's the only way Pokemon can handle it, basically.
Oh, another quick question, very quick question before we move on to the next topic. Do you know if anybody who didn't make it in the top 56 got invited? So like the theory that I had, and I think I mentioned this on the podcast, was I had no aspirations of playing in the Players Cup, but I just wanted to see if like 200 tickets could make it in. Which, by the way, I know someone that made it in with 88 tickets, so it was actually plausible to do it if you had literally 0 at the start of the month. But anyways, if I got 257th and somebody in the top 256 backed out, do you know if they sent an email inviting that number 257? If you don't, that's fine.
I mean, I don't know exactly for sure, but what I will say is on the leaderboard, the last leaderboard that I saw, which may not have been the last official leaderboard, but a friend of mine here in New York, Chibi, he had 80 points and the cutoff was 81. And I saw him registered on Battlefy. So
they must have done it.
Well, I think what it says to me is that they haven't kicked anybody off because they didn't respond to an email, because that I don't think that's going to happen. I think if you don't respond, you just get disqualified.
Yeah. Unless there was like a specific date that it says like you have to respond by Tuesday.
No. I think what happened is they probably looked at the list and they said, okay, there's a few of the names on the list of people who are not masters, right? Or maybe don't actually live in the region that they said they did or whatever. So I think there were just some minor technical things they had to work through where there may have been a small number of spots after 256 on the official leaderboard that maybe got in because of technicalities, right? So,
okay.
But I doubt it was very many, 10, 15.
But that just makes my assumption, I said that it was going to be a shit show. That makes it a little bit better than what I was thinking, because it sounds like they're actually going to have a 256 person tournament. Where when I thought they would just be like, well, there's only 235.
No, they are actually going to do 256. Again, assuming everyone registers correctly. I would not be surprised if there are a small number of players who forget about certain things, and thus it becomes a 250 person tournament, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's going to do it for Players Cup, I think. Do you want to kick it off? We're going to jump into some legendary heartbeat action. Jake, I know that you did a video where you looked over all these cards. I I don't want to look over all the cards, but I have the Poke Beach
What?
pulled up here. No, that's just too many. It's too many cards.
But Sean, how am I going to know about every single garbage card in this set?
But I want to keep it down to like whatever your favorite cards from the set are. You tell me your favorites, and if there's any that I see that you didn't mention, then I'll jump in. But let's just talk about your favorites.
All right. So before I kind of get into the favorites, if you don't know, Legendary Heartbeat is a set coming out in Japan on July 10th, which, looking at my calendar, that is Friday. That's coming out on Friday. It was supposed to align with the movie Pokemon Coco's release, but the movie was delayed because of the coronavirus, but they're still releasing it. There's a new rarity called Amazing Rare, which you may have seen on like social media or something, where it's like, it's a normal baby Pokemon, so not like a V or V Max, but instead, in the background is like a swirl of different colors, kind of like tie-dye almost. Would you say that's like an accurate description? It's almost like tie-dye,
Yeah, it's
or
very
like spray
tie-dye
paint.
rainbow.
Someone like spray painted a bunch of colors onto it. But anyways, they kind of cool looking. I like it. It's different. But anyways, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about kind of like the top cards that you have coming out of this, in my personal opinion. Now, I will say Banette, there's a baby Banette card, has the ability Devo Curse. Once during your turn, you may play this card from your hand to evolve a Pokemon. You may de-evolve one of your opponent's benched evolved Pokemon and put the highest stage evolution card on it into your opponent's hand. I think this could be really interesting in a deck like Dragapult. You talk about how Dragapult spreads damage counters, and they whack for just like little 130s, and then they spread 5 or 3-2-1 anywhere, things like that. If you play, this is a little bit more combo-y than what I originally thought, but if you play something like a Boss's Orders, you got a Cinderace VMAX in the active. I don't know why Cinderace was the first one I thought of, but you have a Cinderace VMAX in the active that has 240 damage on it. Boss's Orders. Bring up, I don't know, little Victini, I guess. Evolve your Shuppet into a Banette. De-evolve the Cinderace VMAX into a Cinderace V. That 240 damage on it knocks it out. So you knock out their Cinderace VMAX. I think that's a very, very interesting combo. Because like originally when people saw this card, they were like, like just putting it back in their hand, that doesn't really do much. But it doesn't have to be like, because I originally thought it was put it back in your deck. So I was like, whoa. And then I thought like, oh, maybe it's not actually that good. But then I'm like, wait a minute, comboing. Like this could be very interesting, in my personal opinion, having that like interaction of de-evolving these big giant Pokemon that tank all these big giant damage. Just de-evolve them and their Vs, they're not as bulky. They're not as big. So then you may take one less prize, right? But how far back does it actually put? Like it could put back somebody very, very far. Now, specifically with Cinderace VMAX, maybe not because they have the cards like Welder and stuff. But like if you're talking about maybe a Dragapult Mirror where they're attaching one every single turn, so you de-evolve their Dragapult VMAX into that V and they don't have anything on the bench that has any energy on it. Yeah. I don't know. That's pretty... It's really cool.
It's funny. I'm like looking at this now. I haven't really thought about this card. I think you're right. I think I don't know about in Dragapult. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I like Dragapult's spread.
Dragapult was just the first thing that I thought of because like you spread all the damage counters and stuff, and you usually have to take like multi hits on things in the format right now. So like that was just kind of my first initial thought. I'm sure there's a better thing, but I haven't really thought about like decks in Darkness Ablaze.
Well, I mean, I think about that, and I think you're right. If you're playing against any VMAX deck, I look at this card and I think to myself, man, this is the new combo for Combo Zacian.
Yeah.
Imagine Zacian does 230 damage, which is enough to knock out basically, it's basically any V that evolves into a VMAX. Right?
Not Wailord V.
Well, it does, but it knocks out any V that evolves into a VMAX.
Yes.
So you're sitting there like, okay, well, I'm going to hit you with one Zacian. I have another one on the bench. You can have a 4-prize turn. You could bring another Zacian up, Boss's Order, Dedenne, Crobat, whatever, play down this Banette. You knock out whatever you hit the previous turn. You knock out whatever's in front of you. to me, I actually see
that could be a 5 prize turn.
I mean,
a 6 prize turn.
Well, yeah, you'd have to set that.
A 6 prize turn if you were playing Jirachi, Prism, and ADP.
Well, in expanded, yes.
That would be insane. That'd be literally insane.
But
wait, but with
ADP,
Darkness Ablaze, Jirachi rotates, doesn't it?
Huh? Yeah. Jirachi Prism rotates. So, but this could be the new Jirachi Prism combo, because the only problem with that is you are playing in a form where like you're hitting something not for knockout, right? Mm-hmm. And that means they can respond usually. So do you have a deck that can take whatever the response is to set that combo up on the following turn? But, I agree. I actually think that that's going to be a really interesting thing to play around with.
I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
I think it's cheesy, and I like cheese, even though I'm lactose intolerant. But moving into the next card, another card that makes my lactose intolerant kind of hurt. Alcremie VMAX. I think this is a cool card. It's like similar but different to Dragapult. It's similar in the effect of how we're going to be able to set it up, I think. But Decorate. It's the first attack. It's colorless. It's a psychic Pokemon, 310 HP. For each of your bench Pokemon, search your deck for a psychic energy and attach it to that Pokemon. Then shuffle your deck. Pretty cool attack, in my opinion. That is, it's a way to get a lot of energy on the board, right? It's probably not something ideally that you want to use late in the game because, that your opponent's probably set up a little bit. But the next attack is what I think is very, very interesting. G-Max Finale. 2 psychics. 60 times damage. Discard any number of energy attached to your Pokemon. This attack does 60 damage for each energy card discarded in this way. Each energy card can be a horror energy. That's one thing to note. So I'm wondering also if G-Max Finale works with horror energies, because it says you may discard any number of energy.
Yeah.
When it's discarded, you think it does? Because
it doesn't say, now this could be a translation thing, but it does not say basic energy. It just says energy.
Yeah, it just says energy.
Now, for me, the interesting thing about this is, so you could really play around with this. I know that the attack costs 2 psychic, but I wonder, man, there could be some crazy combos of this. Like, what if you played this in a welder deck, right? What if you played this with triple acceleration energy? Because discard any number of energy attached to your Pokemon. Well, a triple acceleration is 3 energy. Oh, no. Oh,
well, twin energy if you attach it to the bench.
Hold on.
Holding.
This attack does 60 damage for each energy card discarded in this way. Not each energy.
Okay. Read the card. So triple excel, not good.
Yeah.
Twin energy, not good. Just play psychics.
Well,
just play Turbo Patch.
I think you could play welder.
Yeah, you could do welder.
Welder.
Man, that's like so hard to do welder, but you could play welder.
I mean, ADP Alcremie VMAX.
So you're telling me you're running fire?
No, psychic, you don't have to play welder. You could just play the ADP. But the problem with this is this exists in a format where if you're running psychic energy on this, I just don't know how much energy you can attach, because if you spend a turn,
we're losing Malamar.
Huh? Yeah, we're losing
Malamar.
So you spend a turn using Decorate, right? And you're like, gosh, like, is that one turn that I used? And then they hit me with Zacian, right? And then then
you die because you're weak because Alcremie's a fairy Pokemon.
Yeah, so
Rip fairy.
I think you actually have to find a different acceleration here. Now there is an Alcremie in Rebel Clash, I want to say it is, that also accelerates energy onto the fields in some way, but I don't know the details. But anyways, or you could pair that with one of the, amazing rares. I don't know if you want to talk about any of them, but I'll let you move on to the next one.
Okay, we'll get to the amazing rares. But first, I want to talk about, I'll go into the amazing rare that I think you're talking about. Jirachi. Amazing rare. Ability, Dream Oracle. Once in your turn, if this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, look at the top 2 cards of your deck and put one of them in your hand and return the other one to the top of your deck. It's like Pidgeotto, but different.
Yeah, same, but different.
But what's really interesting about it is the attack. Psychic Fighting Metal. Amazing star. Search your deck for up to 7 basic energy cards and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you'd like. Then shuffle your deck.
See, this for me is the combo with Alcremie, because you can actually power this Jirachi up in one turn. Go behind on prizes, attach a Karate Belt. Check, that's your fighting energy. Metal Saucer and a metal energy onto it, attach a Psychic. This is actually a very achievable attack in my opinion. So like I think this could be a really interesting one to play with something like Mismagius.
Yeah, you go Mismagius Karate Belt.
Yep, Mismagius Karate Belt. You draw a bunch of cards, put a metal into the discard, and then you run basic
Metal
psychic
Saucer.
energies.
That's a lot of comboing, in my opinion.
Yeah, it might be
It
too
could
much
work,
comboing.
but that's a lot of comboing. You have to find the item. You have to you have to get specifically a metal energy in the discard.
Mhm.
You have to find your metal saucer. You have to have Jirachi on the bench when you use the metal saucer. You have to retreat whatever's in the active, which probably isn't the hard part about this. You know, there's definitely other things like, well, Jirachi with the skateboard. I mean, you could have like Jirachi in the active to help you out, like team up Jirachi, use scoop up nets. That's just another combo though that you have to hit. I don't know. This is a lot of comboing. If you get it off, it's completely busted. It's insane. Like, it's crazy. But that's a lot to get off.
You're right. And also it requires you to run like some sort of either Aurora or Psychic Energy, Metal Energy split, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
All that said, though, that's one that I want to try. Just because, like, I think that's the busted combo. Like, either you pair this with like a Turbo Zacian build or something like that, or you pair this with the Alcremie VMAX. I think
I can see this in the thumbnails of YouTube videos. I can see it already.
And that would be the cutest combination. You have like Jirachi and Alcremie VMAX in the same thumbnail. Like, that's adorable.
That's adorable. Again, I become viral. 100,000 views on YouTube.
So, but yeah, I agree. I think Jirachi is by far the most usable of all of these amazing rares, and it looks good too.
Mm-hmm. It does. I mean, I think the amazing rares like look good overall, but yeah, that one's probably the most playable. But another card that is playable, we're talking about VMAXs again. I think Colossal VMAX. Now, this might be a little bit of underdog for some people. 330 HP, 4 retreat costs. Goes well with the knee pads, whatever that's called. What are the knee pads called, Sean?
Buff padding.
Buff padding, yeah. I just see them as knee pads or like braces, knee braces. Anyways, Colossal VMAX, 330 fighting Pokemon, 1 fighting energy, Eruption Blast, 40 plus damage. Discard 1 card from the top of your deck. If that card is an energy, this attack does 90 more damage. Then attach that energy to this Pokemon. That's very interesting in my opinion of an attack. Okay, I was going to pair this up with Stone Energy, but I just reread Stone Energy where it says, as long as this is attached to a Pokemon, it provides fighting energy. So I don't know if it's considered an energy card before attachment, like I was mentioning earlier with Horror.
That's your attachment for turn, and then you put some other energy on the top of your deck with a Rangaroo.
I was thinking you could, that's exactly what I was thinking, but I was thinking you could do like a double Stone Energy attachment.
Yeah. No, I don't know if that's something.
I don't know if you could do that, but you could accelerate energy. And I think I've said this on the podcast before, where like fighting decks, the reason that they've kind of struggled is because they don't have acceleration. Like they don't really have that type of acceleration that make it effective outside of an attack. Now, this one is doing like 130 damage, which I think is a pretty decent like chip shot. You know, you can put down the dojo to do 140 at least,
or 170
or 170 if you're behind on prizes. You know, maybe you use like a Mismagius, right? And then therefore you can use the karate belt to make your second attack hitting for 240. Only 3 energies, only 3 fighting it. Or wait, is it?
Yeah, it would only.
It takes away. No, it would. Yeah, it'd be 2 fighting energies and then 1 colorless energy. 240 is a little bit underwhelming for me personally. You one shot in Eternatus.
I mean,
right? And then we got the Colossal Baby. Pair that up. You know, you slap Pikarami, slap Eternatus. Those are like 2 really big decks in the format right now. Not to mention that you can effectively make yourself with buff padding.
Enormous.
Yeah, you can make yourself enormous alongside the stone energy, alongside Dragapult being like only hitting you for like 80 damage a turn, right? It probably eventually, maybe, I don't know. It does like more damage with the whatchamacallit, the damage, the 5 damage counters that it spreads rather than you if you just attach it every single turn, which is pretty insane in my opinion. So I don't know. Colossal could do well. It's got a grass weakness. Like what's the best grass deck that's going to come out? Like Decidueye
I mean,
of Darkness Ablaze doesn't hit for very much. Still has to like 2 or 3 shot you.
I mean, the Decidueye though slaps this deck no matter what because you can't hit Decidueye.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be able to hit Decidueye, but I don't even know if like that might be one where you just like kind of just take that L or maybe hit with like other baby Pokemon like that Colossal.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that I mentioned earlier, the pre-release promo.
I agree. I think it's fascinating that like they seem to be speeding up the rate at which they are countering their own creations. Like we made Dragapult VMAX. Isn't this so great? Oh, by the way, here's Eternatus VMAX. And everybody's like, okay. Cool. All right. Eternatus VMAX is coming out next month, guys, but just wait. We have Colossal VMAX. And that outgoes Eternatus with 1 energy.
Do you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. So Togekiss VMAX is a little bit underwhelming at the beginning, but people are starting to hype this up a little bit. Free Retreater. I think that's interesting to note. Normal 310 HP, weak to lightning. 2 energies, 120. Max Glide. Search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them in your hand, then shuffle your deck. What is the normal special energy that was announced? Because I cannot find it.
I think it's called Powerful Energy or something. It basically
Powerful Energy?
It adds 20 damage to your attacks.
Yeah. So you can effectively try to, with this card, whatever it is, you can effectively 1-shot. Or I'm sorry, not 1-shot, 2-shot. That's what I meant. You can try to 2-shot most of everything in the meta if you have enough on it. I'm still like trying to figure out what is going to make this card so good, especially because we have Marnie and we have Reset Stamp. You know, the 2 cards that you search for. Okay, well, Marnie. Okay, well, Reset Stamp.
Yeah, that's...
Is this a control deck incoming?
I think it has to be, right? I agree. Like, I think you can reach for 2 shots on everything. I've even thought, like, you know, is this a control deck, like an ADP and Togekiss VMAX deck? So because it's colorless energy, so you can play any energy. If you did ADP, then you're hitting 150. Throw a couple of those powerful energies on and you're at 170 or whatever. I feel like that it has to be control, because if you don't control whether or not your opponent has Marnie or Stamp in hand, then the benefit of searching 2 cards is kind of pointless, right?
Let's think about the different control cards. So you have Cincino, you don't have a Rangaroo. So this will be dependent on like taking prizes, right? Yes. You have to take prizes to win. There's probably not an opportunity with Togekiss VMAX to mill out your opponent. No. You know, you do have Chip Ice Axe. You have your Cincinos. I already mentioned that. You still have Lieutenant Surge. Well, would you even play Lieutenant Surge?
You could,
because like if you're trying to take 6 prizes, I guess you could use it like early game.
Yeah, I think if you really wanted to go hardcore, I'm really thinking that there's a new Obstagoon that's coming out in Darkness Ablaze.
Oh yeah, there is.
Yeah, the ability is your opponent discards until they have 4 cards in their hand. I think pairing that maybe with something like this, and then you know, if you can play Jesse and James, make them discard 2 more cards. Basically whittle their hand down where if you did Surge double Jesse James with Togekiss VMAX and Obstagoon, put your opponent in a 0-card hand. That's very control-y, right?
It's also 4 cards that you have to have in your hand that you have to get rid of.
That is true.
You know?
On top of the Surge and double Jesse
Yeah,
James.
that's 7 cards.
Yeah, it's a lot to
Is
ask
that like
for.
really plausible?
I mean, there is an engine. I mean, I'm going to start giving my ideas away here, but there's an engine that also runs Silvally GX and Rose that I think could be interesting.
I forgot about Rose.
So like
I forgot about that.
Silvally GX lets you draw till you have 5 cards in hand. And then you've got Rose, which can accelerate whatever energy onto this thing. Not that it needs a lot of acceleration. I mean, 2 energy is not that crazy. Yeah, I think there might be ways to get this. I think it's going to be tough, though, because 310 HP is not a lot. So I think that maybe this has to sit behind another tank, or I don't know, like you kind of need to get the lock in before you bring this guy up to start doing damage and searching out cards every turn.
It's weird. I'm like trying to think about how I would want to do it and how people are, because I've seen people like talk about how it's good, but I haven't really seen anybody talk about like what makes it good. They're just like, oh God, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, right? Like if you look back, Charizard and Braixen has, a very similar attack. You do 180
Yeah, plus it has
damage.
Welder.
Yeah, and it has Welder. You're right. It's a 4 energy cost, but whatever. You have Welder. It does 180 damage, which is even more. And you still search 2 cards in your deck. And you know how much play that card sees? 0. So I do worry that like the added effect is amazing, but I don't know of any decks that have been built to date that can ensure that effect is actually put to good use.
Sean, what about you? What we've been going a long time. What is this podcast episode's long? What are you excited about in this?
I'm
that
just
I
going to
haven't
say
mentioned?
there's only one card more that I think is worth talking about. I'm looking for it, and it is Lugia. So,
yeah. Okay,
yes.
Continue. Yeah, I've seen this card.
Oh my gosh, this Lugia, Wind Pressure for 4 colorless energy. I'm not even talking about its first attack. 4 colorless energy, 250 damage on a basic 1 prize attacker. If your opponent has 5 or less cards in their hand, this attack does nothing. So I think it is somewhat balanced by that modifier. If your opponent sees that you throw this down and you're building it up, they can be like, okay, quick ball down below 5 cards in hand, and then your attack.
No, you don't even have to have below 5. You have 5 or less. It's just 5.
Oh yeah. So I do.
Which is a lot.
This is easy, I think, to play around for the opponent. So the question is, okay, what do you play with this? Things like Surprise Box could be good. That does not rotate. That is in Team Up.
Yeah.
So like things like Surprise Box could be nice. Look, it's easy to play around, but I do think that maybe you play this with, I know what you play this with. Luxray. Not Luxray, sorry, Vikavolt.
Oh, the item lock?
Yes, you item lock your opponent so they can't play any of the item cards from their hand. And then you just build up this Lugia for the 250 knockout.
I find it interesting because I feel like this is going to be a card that is better when you can just lay it down right away and then attack with it in the same turn in comparison to, because like you say, like,
Yeah.
You'll have to get item lock or something, or else they're just going to be able to play around it, or you're going to have to combo Marnie's Surprise Box, which is hard when Marnie shuffles your hand as well, right? So I think that this card is very exciting. 250 is a whopping amount of damage. What knocks out a Pika Rom. Very, very cool. I don't know. It's just like it's 4 energy costs. If it was a 3 energy cost, make it happen, Captain. We have multiple ways to be able to do that. But 4 is a lot harder to hit.
I know. You could play this in a Welder deck. You could Welder for 2, attach a twin energy, and that's...
You could.
And then you're ready to go. I don't know where this lives, but, I think you could play energy switches maybe, depending on the deck you're playing. If you're playing tag teams, you could even play tag switch. To the point that you were making of like, how do you bring this out of nowhere to do 250 damage?
Yeah, like that's the way that I see this working. So you have to bring it, you have to throw it down, and in that same turn you have to attack.
Yeah.
Cool card though.
Yeah, so that was the one card that I'm like, I don't know where it lives. I don't know how many you put in whatever deck, but definitely potential.
This is going to be the part that Sean gets up on his soapbox, and he's got something big to talk about, something very, very important to talk about.
I'm going to try to keep this one fairly short and sweet as a soapbox, but if you are, on Verbank or Hey Fonte or whatever, or maybe even just Twitter, you may have seen a store called, I don't even know if I want to name it, but I have to name it so you know what I'm talking about. There's a store here in Long Island called the Store of Fire and Dice. And they are being called out for a number of things that they're displaying in their store, the trophies, etc., and also the fact that they're hosting, in-person events right now and not requiring any sort of masks or personal protective equipment at the events. And this is New York City, where whether or not you want to follow the state order, there is a state order out that you have to wear masks indoors at businesses. Suffice it to say, there's obviously a lot of debate that you can have. I don't necessarily want to direct people to go find these posts, but it sort of it got kicked off in two ways. One, the store owner has a trophy belt of some sort for his event that features, iconography on it. And, people can debate what that iconography means. There is a silhouette of Donald Trump. There is a hand sign that can be interpreted in numerous ways, but the simplest way to visualize it for you at home is an OK symbol. There is a, picture of Pepe the Frog, which is a popular meme. And then there is also a picture of a flag called a Kek flag, I believe it is.
Kekistan.
Yeah, and so, I can tell you what all of these things might or might not mean. Obviously, the Donald Trump symbol silhouette is obvious. The Kekistan flag, it's like, certain meme corners of the internet. Kek is a term that also just kind of roughly means LOL. I'm not really super familiar with this terminology, but the flag is sort of a meme flag that can also be used by people who lean conservative. I'm going to put that as generously as possible. And then the other two images, you have Pepe the Frog, which was a meme that was created just by an artist, as a character, a cartoon character, and was co-opted by, alt-right, if you want to call them that, which I do, but co-opted by alt-right people and used in many ways that you could obviously see as racist, even though that wasn't the creator's intention. But that's how it has been used and how people see it in some circles. And then the last one is the OK symbol, which, other people might also think, oh, that is a symbol for white power. Now, the point of all of those symbols, you can say that they are right or they are wrong. And then you get into a debate about whether or not the intention of the owner of this store making this belt is to showcase white nationalism or what, right? Personally, I would guess that, the owner of the store also has a wife that is a person of color of some sort. But I don't know if he is in and of himself racist. I don't know if that is the message he's trying to send. But that is not the debate that we need to have about that specific choice of his as a store owner and card shop proprietor and somebody who runs events in the Pokemon community. What people really need to think about with that is the judgment that was made by a card shop owner to even make that sort of title belt to give away to patrons at all. Because, he's clearly trying to send some message with that. And the message, if you read it the most generously, is at least a message of, I don't agree with progressives, liberals, whatever you want to call it. And I don't agree that, we should be forced to close down our store because it was called a freedom protest, the event that he held, because of coronavirus. So, at minimum, it is a trophy that is ridiculing people who are concerned about coronavirus, and rightly so. That's the stand I'm willing to take. It's ridiculing those people and using iconography that, at a minimum, people that have conservative views use to ridicule, quote unquote, snowflake liberals, right? Because they, will fall back on, oh, it's just a joke and you're just being too sensitive by saying that you think that it's a racist terminology. So at a minimum, you have a store owner and somebody who is sanctioned for Pokemon events and Wizards events, or were sanctioned for Wizards events, creating an atmosphere that is clearly not welcoming to a number of people. At a bare minimum, that's what this individual is doing. So I don't think that it matters whether or not you want to argue whether or not that is actually a racist thing that he's doing or not. Anyone who tries to make that argument against you, if you're like, I don't like this because I think it's inappropriate, I think they are baiting you, and I think they are gaslighting you. And the real question we should be asking is, why is this individual who hosts sanctions events for Pokemon, which is a place where children go to participate, why is this person deciding that they need to take a stand against, state guidelines and health mandated guidelines? The other thing that happened was they were holding events, and there's pictures of nobody wearing face masks sitting next to each other. And the owner saying, we're not going to make them wear face masks because it's unconstitutional. And then when people are upset at him and say, well, this isn't cool, and we're glad that WotC took away your, ability to run sanctioned events, and we're going to make sure Pokemon does the same, everyone gets upset, like, oh, you can't do that to him, blah, blah, blah. I think it's important to remember that he is, I suppose, allowed to do and say whatever he wants. It is his right to do those things, but freedom of speech is not freedom from consequences. And I think that's a very important distinction that needs to be made for anybody out there. We are not saying that this person is not allowed to make this title belt. What we are saying is that we are then entitled, or allowed, if you will, to be upset about it and to tell Pokemon. And let's be frank, Pokemon is a conservative company. Not conservative like politically. They are a conservative company in that they don't want to associate themselves with controversial figures or topics or whatever you want to call it. So in a time of coronavirus, if one of their stores is acting against their own internal policies by holding events where no protective equipment is being used and flouting local regulations, even if you don't believe they're constitutional, when that is happening, Pokemon has to look at that and say, what do we agree with? Like, do we want to say this is fine? And then when local card shops do it everywhere and a bunch of kids get sick, that's going to look bad on them. Or do they want to take a stance that says, this is not something that we endorse, and this person is no longer allowed to run sanctioned events? So that's my soapbox. I think that it's important, if you are debating this on Hey Fonte or Verbank or whatever, just to remember that it's not about what the exact meaning of those icons are. It's about why this store felt the need to do this in the first place. And is that an appropriate thing for a sanctioned Pokemon card shop to be doing?
I will just state my real quick 2 cents. I think there's a lot of problems with this. Obviously, as Sean talked about. One thing I don't think you did mention is in the post, there are screenshots of it. The store owner specifically calls the coronavirus Kung Flu, which I think is incredibly
inappropriate, to say the least.
Inappropriate, yes. Especially also when you're implying that, the wearing a face mask, being forced to wear a face mask is considered unconstitutional. There's, like Sean said, there's the state.
There's a state order right now in New York.
State order, yes, that's the word. Where like in businesses you have to wear a mask. There's a reason for that, because the coronavirus kills people. It's very, very contagious. Not good. It's not like a common cold.
I don't know how enforceable these state mandates actually are in a constitutional sense. That is yet to be argued. But I will say it is it's an impeachable, not impeachable like legally, but it is certainly a characteristically impeachable offense from a health and safety perspective, because the data is clear. If people spend time together indoors, there is a much greater likelihood that the coronavirus will be spread. So making people not wear masks and then allowing them to sit that close to each other, and, you know, not making people not wear masks, but not forcing people to wear masks inside, it just puts people at a health risk. So I don't care about the legal aspect of it. I think Pokemon is not going to care either. I think what Pokemon should look at is like, is this a store that we think is appropriate to hold sanctioned events? And Pokemon has every right to tell a store yes or no, based on a variety of different factors. And so I think that's just the reality that they got to live in. Okay, you can go and do this thing and make your stand up on Stupid Hill, right? But like, you know, don't be upset when the people that you work with don't agree with that. And they are also well within their right to say, we don't want to work with you. How about that? That's my soapbox on it. I don't want to belabor this one anymore, but yeah.
Just have a fucking common sense.
That's really all we're asking for. You can have your own opinions in your own time, but don't put other people at risk with your stupidity. I would say, if anybody listening, if you feel strongly about this as well, about what they're doing, the best thing you can do, honestly, don't write any notes to this person. They don't seem to care. Just write to the Pokemon Company International, report them for this, you know, violation of state mandates, and request that they, you know, that actions be taken and that they potentially lose their ability to hold sanctioned events.
But they will, especially when it talks about the health and safety of other people. It's certainly something that they consider heavily. You know,
Yes.
they run a store where the person has openly stated it is unconstitutional to force people to wear a mask. You know, the store has stated that they will give masks to people
who ask. But the point of a mask is everybody has to wear them, because it's not about, the mask doesn't protect you, the wearer, from getting it. It protects other people from getting it if you have it. That's the point of the mask. So if not everybody chooses to wear it, nobody should even bother, basically.
And it's like, people have joked around about TPCI. You know, they don't care about the Pokemon trading card community, and they don't care about the players and all this stuff. And we joke around about that, but they do care when it comes to the health and safety. That's where they, for sure, like, that's just what I don't know.
Yeah, and
that's my 5 cents. I put a little bit more than 2 cents in.
Yeah, and I would say, if you have kids, double for you.
Oh yeah, if you have kids, go. Yeah, if you got kids, don't let your kids go here.
But I think that's going to wrap it up for us. I think that we've been going a long time, a very long time.
I will say, wait, do you still have a recording?
Yeah, it's still recording.
Oh yeah, leave a review. A lot of people have been sending myself and Sean very, very awesome, nice words. How they love the podcast. They love, you know, all these things, and shout outs to you. I love that. But if you really want to, that's a bad way to say it. Leave a review.
Just leave a review. It's also awesome.
Yeah, no, because if you leave a review, you know, it gives us good ratings. It gives people more justification. You know, when they come across the podcast, they're like, oh, maybe I want to read the reviews to see if this is actually good. The reviews are a great way to convince someone to at least give us a listen. So,
as my Uber driver once said, 5 stars. 5 stars.
Yeah, 5-star review me, please. I'll give you some peanuts. I guess I got a bag of peanuts here. You know, you want a bag of peanuts? I will courtesy for everyone that sends a 5-star review. I will send a bag of peanuts.
Don't promise that.
Sean will send a bag of peanuts.
No. Okay.
Sean has an infinite stash of peanuts. He lives next to the peanut factory.
No. Okay.
He will bag up
5 stars. I'm signing this off, Jake.
Bye.
Bye,
Love you guys.
everybody.